Well, welcome in, everybody, to the Farsi show here at the Steven Singer Studios. Marc Farzetta with you, and bust out the brooms, baby! Phillies get a win over the Milwaukee Brewers, completing the 4-game sweep of the Brew Crew, and they're going to need a couple of them brews to make themselves feel a little bit better. Maybe they can't feel the pain anymore, but how about the Fandemic crew out there yesterday showing the team buses in Milwaukee the broom as they get swept on out of South Philadelphia. See you later. Phillies now gets a little bit more difficult for them. A little bit more difficult as they're going to have their next 6 games against divisional opponents. 3-game series coming up in Atlanta against the Braves, and then a 3-game series coming up on the road also in D.C. against the Nationals. But let's focus in on this game yesterday because we're going to break it all down. Zack Wheeler, just an incredible game for him. We'll talk about that, obviously. We'll talk about Alec Bohm's big hit. We'll let you hear from Joe Girardi after the game. Joe Girardi was I thought, great after the game. For people that hate analytics and they always want to talk about looking somebody in the eyes, giving them the eye test, Joe Girardi did that yesterday with Zack Wheeler, and it let him allow his starting pitcher to stay in the ballgame to finish that one out. He also talks about Alec Bohm, how he's hitting the baseball. Nice, huge home run for him yesterday. And Joe Girardi also talked about his first-place team and what has impressed him the most about this squad. So we'll get into that. We'll put a bow on the Eagles' draft coverage as well, as Adam Kaplan will join the show today from Inside the Birds podcast, but not just Inside the Birds podcast, as we know him and love him from, obviously, in his long history of covering the NFL throughout his long career, but also we just started a new Twitch show. That's right, a new show on Twitch with Adam Kaplan covering all things NFL. So he'll join us today to talk about that and also talk about the Eagles to give us his draft grade, more or less, on this Eagles draft and see how he's feeling about the picks that Howie Roseman and the rest of the Eagles brass made. I also went into the field for another Farsi in the Field edition where I asked people whether or not they felt better about the Birds after the draft. And it turns out a lot of people feel a lot better about the Birds. Feeling better about Howie Roseman, not so much, but they still feel better about the Birds overall. And we'll talk about them 10-9-8 76ers getting back on the hardwood tonight against the Pelicans, a team that has given them a good run for their money over the last couple of years. So we'll talk about that as well. Just a little personal note for you people. I don't know how I'm going to get through today's show without just sneezing my brains out. I don't know if you guys are allergy sufferers, but usually I just struggle with allergies with my wife's cats, to the point of like where I can't breathe. For instance, here, I'll show you right here. Here's my little inhaler that I got to pop every once in a while. Yeah, I think I'll be okay. I don't need that so much today, but I don't know if it's a pollen, whatever it is. I can barely breathe. I think I went through a whole box of tissues already. So any allergy sufferer out there, just realize I love you. I'm here for you. We'll get through this together. Let's start it off with some baseball. Zack Wheeler yesterday was masterful, and the Brewers were also masterful in their performance yesterday. And I'm following the action, and I see Odubel Herrera finally got a hit for the Phils. And I mean for the Phils, not him. That's 2 days in a row, I believe he's gotten a hit for you. But now you're watching this team, and you're watching this offense, and they're struggling mightily. They're whiffing on pitches. They're rolling over on fastballs, grounding out, not cashing in early opportunities like what they had in the first inning. And then on the other side of it, you're watching Zack Wheeler just pitch a beautiful ball game. He had a 2-seam fastball working well for him, tailing back on the inside corner of the plate, away from the left-handed hitter, away from the left-handed hitters. You also saw him throw his slider multiple times to get out of a couple of jams, get out of a couple of full counts as well. He pitches 117 pitches yesterday. Just a beautiful performance from him, and exactly what you needed when your bats were getting dominated as well. But let's start it out with the offense that happened in the 7th inning. Alec Bohm is hitting around 220 so far. The pop has not been there in his bat. But Alec Bohm steps up to the plate yesterday, and he belts a home run to right field, goes the opposite way, goes with the pitch, and puts it a couple of rows back in right field to give you a 1-0 lead. And the smallest amount of breathing room you could have for a guy like Zack Wheeler, who, again, was just dominant yesterday in his complete game shutout. But after the game, Joe Girardi talked about how great it was to see a guy like Alec Bohm be able to connect with a pitch that actually ended up being productive for this team.
Alec's numbers don't reflect how hard he's hit the ball this year. They just don't. And it's unfortunate for him because it's frustrating for him. But we recognize that he's hitting the ball hard. He's not running into a lot of luck, is the bottom line. But that's a big home run. With those two guys on the mound today, 1 run felt like a lot.
And it was a lot yesterday, no doubt. So you're watching all that happen, and you're watching a guy like Alec Bohm who has struggled. And like I say, he's batting around 220 right now, and he steps up to the plate and he just belts one. Anything to get his confidence going, because as a third baseman, and I will continue to say this, from last year to this year, he looks like a totally different guy. He's not a gold glove candidate or anything like that, but he just looks a lot more comfortable in the field. So you see the work that he's really put in to become a better defensive third baseman. But as we always say, when you look at third base, you also want to make sure you have a guy that can hit with some pop. And Alec Bohm recently hasn't been able to do that. But listening to Joe Girardi right there talk about sort of more of the analytics side of things and exit velocity and the contact that they're making. We used to call it back in the day just some good wood, right? Alec Bohm has been putting a good bat on the baseball. The only problem is he ain't hitting it where they ain't, right? He's not hitting it where they ain't, I should say. That is just that's a matter of just dumb luck. So for him to make the adjustment, go with the pitch, to hit it to the opposite field and get you your first run of the ball game. And then Rhys Hoskins added a run in the 8th inning with a nice RBI double to left field. That was great to see. It turns out that the only offense you really needed were the offense that you got late in the ball game. It was unlike what you have seen in the previous 3 games of this series, where you really didn't get any. You only got offense early and not much late. This was the opposite of that. But it also, Joe Girardi pointed out after the game that this was the first game in a week that the Phillies actually won. Now, a game that they won by 2 runs. So this, by Philly standards, is a blowout in recent history. So all that was great. But the star of the show, without question, was Zack Wheeler and what he did for you on the mound yesterday. And for anybody that hates analytics, this is what jumped out at me. And I always say analytics are invited to the party and they shouldn't be throwing the party. And yesterday I thought was an example of analytics being invited to the party and not throwing the party. Yesterday, Joe Girardi talked about a mound visit that he had after Zack Wheeler allowed a hit in the 9th inning. And at that point, he was already on 117 pitches. So Joe Girardi decides to try it out there to the mound to have a conversation with the starting pitcher. And here's how that conversation went.
Kane did a good job, but, I just felt like his stuff was still good. He was still getting ground balls. A ground ball gets you out of a double play gets you out. And that was going to be his last hitter no matter what. He did an unbelievable job.
What was the conversation like when you went out there?
I just wanted to make sure he was okay. And you got to look people in the eyes and trust that they're telling you the truth. But he said he was good, and knowing that he's got an extra day's rest the next time, I feel pretty good about it. I think he didn't throw too many pitches his last time, so I feel pretty good about it. And his stuff was still good.
Phillies just look like a team that is determined, and Zack Wheeler certainly led that charge for him yesterday. And when Bryce Harper was in the lineup, when Rhys Hoskins was going through his hot streak, Brad Miller even came up with a big 3-run home for you the other day. Really, we have talked about guys not getting hot at the same time. Only one guy being hot every day. Like one guy being the guy to come up with a big hit. It seems like it's starting to fall into place where multiple guys are going to start to get hot for you. Multiple guys are going to start to put things together for you. And yesterday was an example where the Phillies just simply needed somebody to stand up and somebody to really get something on the board for the starting pitcher. And the same could be said for the Brewers. The only thing was that Zack Wheeler was just that much better, just a little bit better. But seeing a guy like Bohm step up to the plate, come up in a clutch moment when his offense needed him, when his team needed him, and Zack Wheeler finished the job, and Joe Girardi allowing him to finish the job, and Joe Girardi saying, you know what, let me take this big bag of analytics and throw it out the window for a second, and let me just look my pitcher in the eyes to see whether or not he can finish this game. And what did Zack Wheeler's eyes tell you there, Joe? This is mine. I got this. So that's what you want to hear. You want to hear a guy kind of ignore the numbers, and you want to hear a guy just look his pitcher in the eye and say whether or not he can finish the ball game, and that's exactly what he did yesterday. Great to see that. Absolutely. Now, here's the other interesting thing. Phillies are in first place. And they're about to go in these 2 series I just mentioned earlier with the Braves and the Nationals, both on the road. And Joe Girardi has talked about yesterday what's impressed him the most about what the Phillies have done so far this season. And here is what the manager had to say about his ball club. Listen to this.
I just think how resilient they are. We've had some tough losses. We've had some tough losses on the road, going back to the road trip. Offense around the league is down. Pitchers are really good. We're running into a good starter every day. You think about the starters that we ran into. There weren't any high earned run averages that we ran into. And just seemed like they got better and better as the week went on. But they're resilient. They never give at bats away. They They never make excuses. They come to work every day and work hard and fight. I think these guys, truly enjoy playing together, and they have fun in the clubhouse and they enjoy what they're doing. And but it's their resiliency that has been so impressive to me.
Is that not what we ask for from our teams every single day, every single game, every time we see them take the field or the ice or whatever it might be, the hardwood? We just ask that they be resilient, they fight back, they never quit, they never give up. And that's exactly what's jumped out to me. And I think most people, when you look at this Phillies team, they're not out of it. And it's not the same feeling that you could talk about for those of us that got to experience 2008. It's not the same feeling like that where they just always feel like they're a big home run away from being in a ball game. But it goes back to what I was saying earlier. You feel like somebody's going to step up for this team. You feel like somebody is going to step up in the clutch for this team, whether that be a healthy Bryce Harper, whether that be Rhys Hoskins, whether that be Brad Miller, whether that be Alec Bohm, whether that be Didi Gregorius, whoever it might be. And now Gene Segura, they're going to be getting back very soon. That is what you want to see from your ball club. You want to feel like they're never out of it. Like they can always punch their way back into a ball game, or even if it's close, and even if you go and face a guy like Woodruff yesterday and you can't hit the brown side of a barn against him, you want to feel like there's going to be a moment where he's going to make a mistake and somebody in this lineup is going to capitalize on it. And I thought yesterday was a great example of that. Now you got to keep that going, because you're not coming off a great series that you had against the Braves from the previous time you faced them. You're obviously coming off a great series you had against the Brewers. But in terms of going back to the last time you faced the Braves, and now this will be the first time you faced the Nationals, you want to be able to put an exclamation point on all of this. And the Phillies right now are a game up in first place in the NL East, the toughest division in baseball, which ironically has the worst record in baseball right now when you add up the wins and losses from all the teams. But this is the type of series where you want to see an exclamation point put on it. You had a great opening to the season against the Braves, and you certainly handle your business with a sweep. That's the way you got to handle it. But this is the type of game you want to make sure you go back and you put that exclamation point on that series against the Braves, and make sure you get the season started off even more so on the right foot. Then you go into Washington, and you make sure you handle your business there. 6 games on the road against divisional opponents. We'll see how the Phillies come out on the other side. Also, little news and notes there for the Phillies. Mickey Moniak sent back down. Gene Segura is going to be activated. It's going to be interesting to see what they do with Nick Maton, because I don't want to say that the Phillies are trying to turn him into a center fielder or anything like that, but I'd love to keep his bat in the lineup. And Gene Segura is not someone whose bat I want out of the lineup, obviously. I love the middle of the infield there with Didi Gregorius and Gene Segura. So what I'd love to see is Maton make some kind of effort. He looks like he certainly has the build for it. I don't know. And it certainly has not worked out in the past when the Phillies have tried to take a second baseman and put him in the outfield. And Scott Kingery, wow. They certainly didn't do him any favors. But I think it's worth a shot to see how he handles it, see how Nick Maton handles it. And that's something that I think the Phillies will eventually try out, especially if the center fielders continue to not hit. And like I just said, two hits in the last 2 days. For Odubel Herrera, for the Phillies center fielder. So that's at least a nice sign. He almost had a big hit yesterday that was just perfect play by the Brewers in right field that they made on Odubel Herrera, which most likely would have been at least a double for him. But I think the Phillies are going to try everything they can to make sure that center field position is solidified in the not too distant future. So we'll see how all that plays out. But again, congrats to Zach Wheeler. 118 pitches overall in his start and his win yesterday for the Phillies. A 3-hit complete game shutout. Next up, 76ers back in the hardwood tonight in South Philadelphia, taking on the New Orleans Pelicans. This really doesn't come down to the Sixers really playing any other opponent from here on out, really. This comes down to how the Sixers want to handle themselves from here on out. And like we've said, the magic number is now, I believe, 3 to clinch the number 1 spot in the Eastern Conference. Nets lost again last night, despite Kyrie Irving dropping 45 points last night for the Nets. But the Nets lost again last night. So the Sixers, I believe, are now 2.5 games in first place in the Eastern Conference. It's all about management at this point. And it's not necessarily load management, but it's just kind of managing your bench if you're Doc Rivers. Because I think everyone's pretty confident the Sixers are going to be the number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference. And they might just concentrate on making sure that they load up with that. They might just make sure that they concentrate on locking that up and then resting guys. But it feels like, and this is what Doc Rivers had to say after the win 2 nights ago. Doc Rivers came out and said that this is the kind of moment where you do want to manage the workload of everybody on this team, but at the same time, you also want to make sure that you have a game similar to what you had 2 nights ago, where he emptied the bench and he put everybody in against the Rockets, and you saw 9 players play at least 19 minutes in that victory. So he wants to make sure that he's also testing these players who would be ready for the playoffs, who he can use in the playoffs, who's going to be playing hot, who's going to be the hot hand, who's the guy that he can trust in the playoffs late that might be an off-the-radar type of guy. And the guy I always think about when you're thinking about the off-the-radar top guy, the guy that's like, wait, why is he playing in the playoffs? The guy I always think about, to go back to 20 years ago with the Allen Iverson era, the last time the Sixers saw something past the second round of the playoffs. Remember this name? He actually ended up going on to have a nice little NBA career. Raja Bell. Raja Bell gave you nothing during the regular season. Then the next thing you know, he's in the playoffs, and he's giving you some good minutes, giving you some good defense, giving you some good outside shooting as well. And he ended up having a solid NBA career for himself. Who's going to be that guy? Because I feel like for this Sixers team, you need to have some kind of surprise. I've talked about off-the-radar guys. Like, you're thinking about Tobias Harris, you're thinking about Ben Simmons, you're thinking about Joel Embiid, obviously. But who are they going to be the guys that are going to be the guys that kind of fly under the radar a little bit? Nobody's really talking about Seth Curry. Nobody's really talking about Danny Green in terms of what they can give you in the postseason. But when you talk about a matchup with the Nets, the number one thing we talk about is what the Sixers are going to do defensively. The other thing we talk about is what are the Nets going to do to try to combat what Joel Embiid can do. And they really don't have anybody for that type of matchup. But the other thing is, who's going to be the X factor? I mean, the Nets have a guy like Joe Harris who can hit threes all day long for you. The X factor, I think, for the Sixers is going to be what Seth Curry and Danny Green. If those guys are hitting threes, series over, Sixers are going to win that series. They're going to be in the NBA play or the NBA Finals. But who's going to be the other guy off the bench? Is it going to be another guy like Tyrese Maxey that's going to surprise you? Is Matisse Thybulle going to announce his presence with authority in the NBA playoffs? Who is going to be that guy? And I think Doc Rivers right now, to get back to the overall point here, I think Doc Rivers right now is looking for that guy, that surprise guy to come off the bench and help you out. Shake Milton, yeah, to the rest of the NBA, could be that guy that is going to be the surprising guy, but we've watched Shake Milton all season long. George Hill leading the second unit. Is that how it's going to go down? So the last 5-6 games of the regular season, I think that's what Doc Rivers is doing, and he said almost as much the other night when he was talking about how he's going to be guessing and testing these guys off the bench to see who is going to be the hot hand, who he can trust going forward in the playoffs. And right now, Sixers, 2.5 games up on the Nets, 3 games up on the Bucks, and we'll talk about those guys a little bit more coming up in the Morning Rush segment. But I'll be looking for the same type of thing that Doc Rivers is looking for as most of you are looking for. Who's going to be the guy to give that extra added help? Will it be more of the obvious guys, the other 2 starters in your starting 5? Or will it be somebody off the bench that will give you good quality minutes, good solid defense, and also be able to provide you with some big buckets down the line? Love the Sixers to go out tonight and handle their business against the Pelicans. We'll get to that line coming up in our big bet segment a little bit later in the show. But I do want to tell you, there's one more thing I had for you here. Sixers, Philly. The Flyers. It looks like Cam York is going to be getting his NHL debut under his belt in the not-too-distant future. Skated with the team yesterday, and for all you Flyers fans, I always like to make sure I work in the Flyers in an opening segment here. Would love to see that, and it would give you, once you get eliminated from the playoffs, give me a little taste of what I could see next year. Give me a little hope for what I can see next year. And Cam York certainly is a guy that I have some hope for next year, and I think a lot of us do as well. Do want to tell you about my friend Steven Singer. Fellas, everybody, boys and girls, everyone. Mother's Day is Sunday. You taking care of mom? I'm taking care of mom. And that's why you got to take care of mom with Steven Singer Jewelers. Steven Singer's Gold Dip Rose, 24-karat gold dip rose, #1 gift for mom on Mother's Day. Don't just buy flowers. They end up in the trash in a week. Buy a real rose dipped and trimmed in 24-karat gold, and it lasts a lifetime. Steven always likes to say he's in the love business. So how about this? Each rose sold, he's taking a portion of those proceeds to buy food from local restaurants, and he's paying for hospital workers, healthcare heroes, nurses, doctors. Happy Nurses Day yesterday, by the way. And he's taking the proceeds from that, a portion of those proceeds, to buy food from local restaurants, to pay for lunch and meals for our essential workers. How great is that? That's what Steven Singer is doing right now. Also, don't be fooled by copycats. Go to IHateStevenSinger.com right now. Check out his original 24-karat gold dip roses with his famous lifetime guarantee. They come in exclusive colors starting at just $59. It's your last chance. That's right. Make sure you stop by. Steven Singer George, just $59. Don't wait to get. They also come with a great gift card, by the way, with a personalized gift message. He just knows what he is doing. Go to IHateStevenSinger.com. That's IHateStevenSinger.com. All right. Coming up later in the show, we got our Farsi in the Field segment where I went out and just basically asked people whether or not they feel better or worse about the Eagles since the draft. And it certainly picked up a lot of conversation. So we'll get into even more of that conversation. But our guest today is the great Adam Kaplan. And let's hear from Adam as we put a bow on some of this Eagles draft coverage. And Adam will even give us his grade on the Philadelphia Eagles draft with Howie Roseman and Andy White. Without further ado, let's jump to Adam Kaplan. And joining us now on the Zatos Investments guest line, we welcome back to the show from Inside the Birds podcast and a brand new Twitch show, obviously on twitch.tv. Adam Kaplan joins the show Monday through Friday, 7 p.m., talking to you for an hour about all things NFL. Adam, congrats on the show and welcome back to this one.
Thanks, appreciate it. Yeah, we really enjoyed doing it. Last Friday, we debuted on the second day of the draft, and thanks to Twitch, we had like 12,000 people viewing. It was kind of nice not to get all Eagle fans. Typically with these, like the last 3 days, it's been like Eagles, Browns, Eagles, Raiders, Eagles, and it's cool. But the good thing is that people that are showing up for the Eagles fans have some really good questions. We get some smart fans in there, so we always like that. But it's fun. It's, as you know, Mark, because I know you have a channel there. It's a different medium. It's something that is new. Although I'm usually the first person in with new technology. It's definitely different because, it's usually the gamer crowd where people make a lot of money. These kids are making millions on this thing. And it's just comical. I'm like, all right, hey, listen, if kids are making it, at least you and I can make some money. So I figured, all right, why not? And it's been fun so far.
Yeah. Maybe you and I could just play like a game of Madden while we're talking football.
I haven't played Madden, Mark, since probably the mid-'90s. I've heard it's great. I just haven't played it.
Oh, yeah. Oh, no, I mean, Adam, I don't know if I ever told you this. I played like on PS2. And then I didn't get a new gaming system for like a decade, and then played on PS4. Oh my God! It's like you could talk to the players. It's amazing. That's
what I hear. It's what is it like? I don't know what they call it, franchise mode. I honestly, I haven't seen it since the mid-'90s. So I don't even. It's like if you mention a bunch of things, I'm like, what? I don't know that thing. I don't know anything about it.
Adam, let me ask you this. And you said Eagles fans were asking good questions. I'm sure it was all about the draft for them. Let me just ask this general question for you. Hey, how'd they do? How did the Eagles do in this last draft?
I thought I haven't graded drafts since I worked for FoxSports.com, but everyone's asked me. I thought they did a solid job. If I happen to be grading, I'd give them a B, B minus, B minus. Certainly not an A or an A minus. I like the trade up for Smith. They only gave up a third. I would have preferred trading up for Patrick Surtain. They didn't do that. I was told before the draft it was going to be for an offensive player. I thought maybe Justin Fields. Nope. They wanted Smith. It was one of the 4 players Jeff Mosher and I heard they were targeting. They got Smith. Fantastic football player. Got no problem with it in general. He's a stud. He's a stud.
Okay. Yeah. So some people are worried about the weight. That's the negative side of this. Where are you on that when it comes to Devontae Smith?
Yeah, his weight. He had 2 weights taken measurements. 170 was the first one. 166 was the second. 166 was the most recent. His playing weight should be around I was told mid 170s, high 170s by the time he gets into their offseason program. Maybe by the end of training camp, who knows? But the problem is also with training camp. Moshe and I were talking about this with Derek Barnett. Derek Barnett was 235 to 240 at the start of training camp last year. Then he got up to in the low 250s, which is his usual playing weight. You do worry about it in the hot and warm weather that he loses all that. That if he puts on bulk, he loses it. So it's concerning long term, but I'm not overly concerned. That to me is the only issue, because very thin frame players have a history of injury in the National Football League. That's something that teams have told me privately. You do get concerned about that, but the Eagles, apparently, from talking to them, they have absolutely no concerns about it.
How do you see him fitting into this offense? Is he going to be a guy that's going to be in the slot and on the outside? A lot of crossing patterns, a lot of fly routes. What do you see for Devontae Smith in the NFL?
It's a good question, Mark. I would say everything and anything. I think they'll line him at every position: X, Z, slot. Move him. He'll be moved a lot. He'll rarely be stationary. A, because of his frame, and B, because that's the way he was used at Alabama. He's super explosive. I cannot wait to see him. I remember when Deshaun Jackson was in 08 as a rookie and watching him run at training camp because they're similar. This kid's 3 inches taller. And the funny thing is Deshaun Jackson's rookie weight was between 166 and 168. Think about that. And he was bony as heck as a rookie. Yeah. This kid is even thinner, but a team that interviewed him at his pro day, he had a shirt off. I was kind of laughing with this coach told me. He goes, he didn't look like a guy who was 168 or 170. He looked a little bit. He was well built for a guy who's that thin. Was the guy's point.
And I always like to say this: no one's ever come to Philadelphia to lose weight. Like that's kind of what we do in Philly. We like to put the pounds on people.
Beef them up, yeah, beef them up, absolutely. Oh yeah, and funny. Did you see what he said on Twitter? He wanted to know where the best cheesesteak places were. I thought that was great way to get the fans behind you. Smart move.
Yeah, and also flood your comments and mentions as well on Twitter.
That's right.
Now I want to move on to the second round pick, Dickerson. Injury history there. How concerned? I know the upside is there in terms of talent. Injury-wise, how concerned should we be with this guy that's going to be an interior lineman?
The only concern for this player is injury. Playing-wise, off the field, on the field, absolute star. Character beyond reproach. He's incredible. He's just an incredible kid. Gifted. Fans will love this kid. But, we don't know when he'll be ready for the season. The Eagles do expect him to play. We don't know if it'll be September, October, November. The 9th month will be September from the rehab, so hopefully he'll be back in the upper half. Plus, he'll practice first, then they'll see. They'll be able to estimate when he'll be able to play. Or he's going to be his long term. I'm told that he was drafted to be Kelsey's replacement, and then they're going to cross train him. I'm told this season and to see what he can do, and that's great. If he could play this season. And if he has to play, when I say play, actually get in a game and play, great. But it's not about this season. He was not drafted to be the starter of the season. He was drafted to be the long-term replacement for Kelsey. And the question is, with both ACLs done, his latest one was left. You do wonder, though, there's risk here. There's no question. Anyone who's not concerned is fooling himself. This is a long-term concern. But the Eagles docs, who I'm told grade pretty hard, they sign off on it. So there you go.
So would you have taken him if you were an advisor in the front office and they lean in and they say, hey, Adam, what do you think about this guy? Would you have taken him there in the second round?
I would have to, Mark. It's a great question. Of all the interviews I've done, I've not been asked that question. The way you asked it is really interesting because this is exactly what Howie Roseman and Jeffrey Lurie and Andy Weidel, the personnel director, had to ask themselves because the way it works is this. He's either a 1 or 2 contract player. If he's a 1 contract player, that means 4 years, you can't draft him. You won't even draft him at all. Mm-hmm. If you think he's a 2 contract player, 4 years plus another one, which means he gets another 4-year deal or 3-year deal, you draft him in the second round. So if you're going to tell me he's a 2 contract player, I'm signing off and we are drafting him in the second round to answer your question.
Okay. No, that's a great way to put it. 2 contract player or 1 contract player. I like that. By the way, Adam Kaplan, don't miss his new Twitch show. You know him, of course, from Inside the Birds podcast and all his NFL coverage throughout his long career. Also now a Twitch channel. You can watch the Adam Kaplan show, 7 o'clock on weekdays, covering all things NFL. I do want to branch out real quick.
We should do a show. By the way, we should do something on Twitch. You and I should, at some point before training camp, we'll do a training camp preview on Twitch.
Oh, twist my arm. Absolutely, man. I love that. And then we'll do a little 5-minute segment on the Sixers where the real fun is.
Oh God! Don't get me started. They're not even playing that great, to be honest with you. But that's another story.
Yeah, and they got 6 wins in a row.
The schedule's been great. Yeah, the schedule's been great.
Now it has been.
It's worked out. They always seemingly some really good player. It seems to be out for when they play the Sixers. But of course, the Sixers have been missing players, so it's equal.
Yeah, it absolutely does. No, don't act like I'm not going to end the interview with a Sixers question. But Adam, I will ask this to go into the national spectrum for a second. There's 1 or 2 more things I want to get on the draft from you. But as far as the national spectrum, Aaron Rodgers and all this stuff going on, what do we believe? What shouldn't we believe? Does Aaron Rodgers want to be back in Green Bay, or is he done in Green Bay?
No. I've known about this. I've known about his angst and disappointment and issues with the front office since last season. Let me go into a scoop I put out. It's pretty interesting. So a team that played the Packers last season, Rodgers went over to the defensive players. I either out of the huddle, he didn't go into their huddle, but he went over to the defensive side of the football to a team that they were playing. I don't know if the game was home or away, but it doesn't matter. What I do know is that he said, quote, "Get me out of here," unquote. I don't know. I mean, so apparently the defensive players, Mark, went over to the sideline. I guess they must have told the coaches and told it got up through the front office and everyone for this team. So it's just weird. It's just a weird deal. You just know that he was look. It stems from Jordan Love. Okay, it stems from Jordan Love. That's where it is. So that's where it starts and ends. And he's got issues with the general manager, which have come to the surface. This has been going on for a while. This is what Packers source told me about Aaron Rodgers over the years. He's a super type A. Needs to be handled a certain way. If you don't handle him that way, it could be ugly. And here we are. It's ugly. Now, we're only in May. We're not in August. This matters more. It's one thing to not show up to June mandatory OTAs and take some fines there. If you don't show up to training camp and the fines in the new CBA are so in the millions, if he misses all training camp, then we're talking. Then the Packers have a decision to make. Then they got to look at trading him. And knowing how stubborn this guy is, I've talked to people who've coached there before, who've worked for the Packers. Much as they love him, he's stubborn like an ox. This guy is. So, Mark, to end this discussion on the Packers, keep an eye on the situation. It's absolutely real, and it's not spectacular.
Wow. All right. That's unbelievable. Talking about, a 3-time MVP, the reigning MVP, and that boat is well rocked there in Green Bay. Adam, to spin it back to the Eagles and the draft, the only now it's funny. I gave them a B- as well. I gave the Eagles a B- on my draft grade for them.
Why? Why did you give them a B-?
Well, one was because I probably would not have taken Dickerson in the second round there because I don't have that much confidence in a guy like that staying healthy when football gets harder with bigger players. And that's my doctorate, right? That's my MD. But when it comes to what happened in the later rounds, and I see McPherson go to the Eagles in the 4th round, and had that been their number one pressing need, and then to see between their 3rd and 4th round picks, 6 different corners go off the board, I thought that was interesting. I thought the value would have been better and also a match for what they really needed on this team. Not necessarily reaching for a need, but having a need right there for the taking. If they would have taken somebody earlier in the draft to play the cornerback position, it would have been probably a B+ for me for the Eagles. But the fact that they waited that long to take a corner, I thought was interesting. My
belief, Mark, and based on the intel that Jeff Mosher and I have, is that they had Devontae Smith higher graded than Surtain. Surtain was the highest graded corner. I go for the corner. I don't agree with it, but I don't work for the Eagles. It's their decision. They can do whatever the heck they want. They don't care what I have to say, but I would have done it. I go for the corner. Corner should always be is. I remember Gil Brandt, the Hall of Fame personnel man for the Cowboys, telling me many years ago. Gil and I sat down. It was some event he and I were speaking at, and I asked him, I said, "Hey, Gil, how did you guys build the Cowboys?" I said, as an expansion team, how would you build it? And he goes, quarterback, offensive left tackle for a right-handed quarterback. He said, right defensive end for 43 defense, and then cornerback. So cornerback, Mark, is one of the top 4 positions. And I've never forgotten, this is probably the early 2000s, but I'm so fascinated by personnel and all that stuff. You take the corner, but if they think Smith is just a better football player than Surtain, okay, I'll sign off on it. But I would have taken the corner.
Okay, so it's funny. So that's where I'm a little reversed. In that round, at that spot,
just to be clear, Surtain went before them anyway, right? He went at 9 to Denver, and they picked at 10. Was it with Dallas, right?
Yes, and as did J.C. Horn.
Right, but again, right. Now talking to the Panthers, Horn was their top-rated corner, and there were 5 players that the Panthers were going to take. If the 5 players were gone from obviously 1 to 7, they would have traded out with the Eagles. The Eagles, I'm told, talked to them. They talked actually multiple times, but in the end, they got who they wanted. But I'm just saying, not apples to apples, but if you're just putting the guys back to back, if both were there and they would have taken Smith over Surtain, I just wouldn't agree with it. But I get it. Smith was higher graded on their board, and you got to do it that way. I get it. I'll accept it.
So I guess here's my question then. Why were you surprised? I guess you were surprised then to see them not take a corner until the 4th round, because that's where my issue kind of came in.
Yes.
The fact that, again, between their 3rd round pick, Williams, and their 4th round pick, McPherson, I believe it was 6 corners went off the board in between those 2 picks. So there were corners there for the taking that other teams had a higher grade on, I guess. Why do you think they waited that long? Because that's where I don't think they could get called out for reaching for a corner in that spot. Okay.
Exactly. Because in years past, Howie Roseman, the Eagles general manager, when he screwed up, he went for need and he made it clear. Boy, he was almost defiant in his press conferences with Andy Weidel, the personnel director. He actually talked about it. Roseman was more honest than I could remember him being with this stuff, probably because of all the reporting that's been done and guys who work for him clearly have been calling him out through off the record interviews. But hey, listen, it whatever. Look, he stuck by the board. Okay, that I know, that I believe, and you know what, good for him. And we'll see how these guys fit in. I'm with you. It's not an A draft because of the risk with Dickerson. Mm-hmm. But man, if this kid works by the way, fans, you're going to love him. I don't know how many games this guy's going to wind up playing for him, but he's such an ass kicker. This kid is unbelievably gifted, and he's a great dude. I'm looking forward to following his career here in Philly.
Anybody that calls out the coach for losing to them in rock paper scissors right out of the gate after they get told they've made it to the NFL, they're a good guy in my book. Certainly entertaining to say the least. Anybody in the later rounds that jumped out to you that you like?
Yeah, the 5th rounder Kenny Gainwell is a guy that I love for this draft. I was hoping the Eagles would draft him so I could see him here. I followed his career for some reason. In 2019, the only season where he really played, he was unbelievable. He might have been the best back in college football. He's incredible. And because Memphis, because they play in Temple's conference, was on TV here all the time. CBS Sports Network, they have the contract for that conference with Temple plays in. So they were on Thursday night football, or Saturday night football, or Saturday afternoon football. And I saw every game that he played. And I don't watch a lot of college football. I just was glued to them. And my God, was he special. He was incredible. And he lined him up. Basically, he was almost a half running back, half receiver. He was dynamic, special. But that is college football. This is a big step up for him, and we'll see how the coaches use him here.
The other name that made it through the draft, Adam, veteran, not a rookie. That's Zach Ertz.
Yeah.
What's the future lie? What lies in the future for Zach Ertz as a Philadelphia Eagle, you think?
He's on the roster, as I've told everyone who's asked. For now, he's on the roster. I don't expect him on the roster in the fall. It's a combination of the Eagles getting what they'd be willing to accept, and Zach willing to either A, restructure his contract, take a pay cut, or work with a future team. Now, for my understanding is he deserves it. His salary is $8.5 million. That's what he expects to be paid. So it's sort of like a cat and mouse game with the Eagles and other teams and Zach, and we'll see how this works out. Everything that I've heard still turns true. I don't expect him to be on the roster this fall, but the Eagles are not going to move him unless they get something that's fair. And Zach's okay with, if a team is willing to accept his salary, that's really going to help this thing get done. The Panthers were not of one of the teams that I heard had interest, and we'll see where this goes. But Zach's been an unbelievable Eagle. Let's not get it wrong here. One of the all-time Eagles, super high characters. Unbelievable for the community. Just comes from a great family. Mom, Lisa, Jeff, and I know, and Josh, our business manager, knows very well. Wonderful lady, wonderful person, great mom, and love the family. I hosted an event with Zach some years ago, but we'll see where this goes. It's fluid right now. Where again, he's on the roster now, and as I keep warning people, folks, rarely are trades made before training camp. They get done by the draft or during the draft. There's just no urgency to do anything. The only urgency there would be for the mandatory camp in June, if he shows up for that one. I don't know why he wouldn't, but if he shows up for it, you don't want him to get hurt on there because you become, by injury protection, you get liable for it if he suffers an injury because you couldn't cut him. You would have to owe him the money if he can't play this season. So just keep an eye on that situation.
Are we going over or below a 4th-round pick, you think, for Zach Ertz?
Won't get a 4th rounder. I thought all along that would be the fair value. Mm-hmm. But, we knew that he had surgery, ankle surgery. He does turn 31. You just have to wonder, as a couple teams told me, they love the leadership part of it, and they love that he's an unbelievable route runner, gets open. But they do wonder, is he the same player, Marc, that he once was? And that is the issue that teams have right now and why the Eagles are not getting a 4th. Now, remember since we've gotten through the draft, you would only be getting compensation most likely for next year. I don't know that. I kind of got to get a chuckle out this. People were asking me before the draft, could the Eagles get a starting corner for them? No team's giving up a starting corner for a 31-year-old tight end.
That's wishful thinking.
Yeah, it's just not happening. Now, could they get a guy that's buried on the depth chart that they had a high grade on the previous years? Yes. Maybe that might happen. But they're not going to get a whole lot for him. It's just you have to wonder, how many years does Zach have left? I don't know.
Right. Adam Kaplan, always providing great football insight with Inside the Birds, as well as your new Twitch show, breaking down the NFL for everybody, all fan bases. You can check it out on twitch.tv. Make sure you subscribe to Adam's channel as well. It's right there on Twitch 5 days a week for you, 7 o'clock each weeknight. And, of course, all the great stuff you do with Jeff Mosher, like I said, with Inside the Birds podcast. Adam, thank you for enlightening us. And, sorry, Nets, Sixers, Eastern Conference Final?
The Nets play no defense. The Bucks don't worry me all that much.
I'm with you.
They will have a plan for Giannis. The Sixers need to get Tobias Harris going. He's been kind of slow, a little bit slow lately with his offense. But Embiid, no one more dominant in the NBA right now. I have so much trust in Doc Rivers. I do. He's just been what a breath of fresh air. I am such a fan of his. I didn't follow him all that much. You know, Mark, you've lived here your whole life like I have. Other than Dick Vermeil, Andy Reid to a certain extent, few coaches in sports here. Dallas Green did. I'm old enough to remember Dallas Green, the late Dallas Green, but few coaches here have had the pulse of how to manage their players here like Doc Rivers has. I know he hasn't been here that long, not even a full season yet, but he's been unbelievable, and I'm so glad we have him.
No, I'm right there with you. Adam, once again, brother, great catching up with you. Good luck with the new Twitch show and, of course, all the great stuff you guys are doing with Inside the Birds podcast with yourself and Jeff Mosher. Adam, thank you, brother.
You got it. Thank you.
The great Adam Kaplan joining us here on the Zatos Investments guest line. Always a pleasure talking to the great Adam Kaplan, Inside the Birds podcast, as well as the new Twitch show with Adam Kaplan there Monday through Friday, 7 o'clock on twitch.tv. And those watching on Twitch right now, what's up? Make sure you check out Adam Kaplan as well. Also, make sure you check out our friends over there at Philadelphia Sports Nation, a local Philadelphia sports site covering your favorite teams across blogs, social media. That's PHLSportsNation.com. Philadelphia Sports Nation, enhancing your Philadelphia sports fan experience. Let's roll in now to DraftKings. The hits literally keep on coming with DraftKings from one boxing event to the next. So make sure you use DraftKings to bet on all the boxing action. Like this offer right now, you can take advantage with DraftKings and DraftKings Sportsbook, America's top-rated sportsbook app. For this weekend's fights, DraftKings is offering all new users a shot of turning $1 into $55. To celebrate this weekend's huge event, DraftKings is offering new users the opportunity to get 55 to 1 odds. That's right. You can turn $1 into $55. That's a $1 bet on the fighter of your choice to win, and you can cash out at $55. So if you also like basketball, if you like hockey, if you like baseball, take advantage of all things with DraftKings Sportsbook, America's top-rated sportsbook app. DraftKings also safe, secure, and reliable, meaning you can deposit and withdraw your funds at your convenience. Download the top-rated DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use promo code Farsi. That's promo code Farsi to sign up. For a limited time, all new users can bet $1 to win $55 on this weekend's main event. DraftKings Sportsbook is going all out for new users by offering them a chance to win $55 when placing a $1 bet on this weekend's big fight. Only at DraftKings Sportsbook. Must be 21 or older. Present in Pennsylvania. New customers only. Restrictions apply in partnership with Meadows Racetrack and Casino. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. I've already told you about Steak and Maine. They're all booked up. They're all booked up for Mother's Day, ladies and gentlemen. So for another time, maybe, check out Steak and Maine at steakandmaine.com in the heart of Northeast Maryland. Whether you like to dine in a more upscale steakhouse or a casual bar and patio, you'll enjoy the highest quality of prime meats, fresh seafood, world-class oyster bar, and freshly prepared sushi. All that in an extensive wine list, including their own Cavada Cellars wines. Open every day for lunch, dinner, or Sunday brunch. Steak and Maine in the heart of Northeast Maryland, voted #1 place for steaks in this great land, in America, by the Travel Channel and the Cooking Channel. So check it out for yourself. Go to steakandmaine.com for more information. We've also told you a lot about FanUp. They bring us Farzy in the field, which you'll see in just a moment here. Asking people about the Eagles draft one final time. But FanUp is where you got to go because the days of playing fantasy sports alone are over. You could enter FanUp's super fun daily and weekly contest, answer fun questions, and rise on their leaderboard. you can win points and rise on that leaderboard. You can win cash. You can also win some of the hottest brand prizes. They gave away a Peloton bike a couple of weeks ago. They gave away a Louis Vuitton bag. They got memorabilia they want to give away as well. It's super fun. It's also easy. The only place to win those hottest brand prizes. They also gave away a pair of Jordans. So how about that? Any day, any week, any season, you could be the real MVP with FanUp. Go to the App Store and download the FanUp app and use promo code FanUp. That's promo code FanUp to get 2,000 bonus points. That's promo code FanUp. FanUp, may the best fan win. Let's jump in now to our social media check-in brought to you by our friends at Steak and Maine and steakandmaine.com. A lot of comments here on YouTube. Always appreciate you guys chiming in on the show. Let's start here at the top. 4 wins, 687 strikeouts. So I'm happy with that. That's from our buddy Dan Schwartz. What's up, Dan? Good morning, brother. It feels like a lot of strikeouts. Certainly yesterday, it reminded me of Dan Patrick when he do ESPN. He'd always say, the whiff. Whenever a guy would strike out. And that was on repeat on my brain yesterday because there was a lot of swings and misses in yesterday's game. Mally is always checking in. Mally, top of the morning to you, my friend. Chris saying, morning, y'all. Morning right back at you. T-Bro checking in. Farsi Friday, let's go. Hey, Phillies got us a sweep leading into this Farsi Friday. So that's why we're all having a nice party here. Dan's checking back in. Oh, Ron's checking in saying Tease flies. I agree, Tease flies. I concur. And I'm looking forward to seeing Matisse Thybulle in this version of the NBA playoffs and not Matisse Thybulle, the rookie, in the restart of the NBA playoffs last year in the bubble, if that makes sense to you. So I look forward to seeing that. Dan's also saying that it's hard to test players against bad competition. I agree. That definitely. However, you still want to see how they're playing going into the playoffs. You want to see still who's the hot hand. And if you could feed somebody or at least rely on somebody, have it in your mind that you can rely on somebody going into the playoffs, then I think that's what Doc Rivers is looking into. And I think that all starts, well, really it already started against the Rockets. Speaking against bad low opponents, I think the Rockets are, I was just looking at 17.5-point underdogs going up against the Bucks tonight. So yeah, the Rockets aren't very good at the basketball right now. However, you can only play who's in front of you, to use that cliche, but it's not so much testing them against the opponents as much as just testing the player themselves and making sure they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. Like Tyrese Maxey against the Rockets did what he was supposed to do. The whole team did what they were supposed to do. They blew him out of the water. But just in terms of the individual, they just want to see, Doc Rivers wants to see how they're playing going into the playoffs. I think that's really all it comes down to. Ronald's also talking about under the radar players. What else do we have here? We have Taylor checking in saying that he's still a Howie hater, agreeing with a comment made by Dan, regardless of how good the draft might look right now. And the national guys that are giving them a pretty solid grade. Adam and I were in that same ballpark. You heard it. He's around a B, B-. I'm in that same ballpark. I'm at a B-. A lot of the national guys had the Eagles up there at top 7 in terms of player value. One writer for The Athletic that we highlighted earlier in the week said that the Eagles graded out the best. They got the best value in this draft. They hit a home run with this draft, so we'll see how it all plays out. What else are we looking at here? A lot of people want Zach Ertz freed, and so do I. And it is insane, but that's kind of the way the market's dictating everything right now. You're not going to get a 4th-round pick for Zach Ertz. And like, I know a lot of people like to jump to the Sam Bradford deal. We never thought we'd get a number 1 pick for Sam Bradford. That was a quarterback, and I don't know anybody who's going to go into the season just like, oh, my God, we need a tight end in the last minute. I don't think that happens. So it's either Zach stays here or Zach gets traded. I still think he ends up getting traded. I think both parties kind of want to move on from everything. I hate to see it. I'd hate to even say it, but I want Zach Ertz to stay in Philadelphia. I still don't think that happens. I think he eventually gets moved. Marc, you're an A from Ian? Is that grading me as an A? Or is that like short for something? Ian? Anyway, I'm sure he's very nice. What else do we have here? Carson Hart. People now comparing Carter Hart to Carson Wentz. I hate that comparison. People should know that by now. Anyway. Oh, A grade. Yes. All right, Ian. We're pals. What's up, brother? Thank you. Yeah. So I appreciate that nice high grade. We'll see. I'll run a 40 and see if you still have me graded out as that. Thanks to everyone that chimed in there on our social media check-in. Brought to you by Ian's back already. No, all respect. I actually like you. Oh, Ian, I like you too, buddy. Appreciate it. Those are some check-ins right there with our social media check-in. Let's check in with some more fans as I went on the streets yesterday for this edition of Farzy in the Field, brought to you by FanUp. I went to the streets yesterday to ask the great people of Philadelphia if they're feeling better or worse about the Eagles since last week's draft. So let's hit it right now on the streets with this week's Farzy in the Field, brought to you by the great people of FanUp. All right, my man, I'm asking Eagles fans whether or not they feel better or worse since the draft. So how do you feel?
I feel better.
I feel better.
We'll see, I guess. Are you feeling better or worse about the Eagles after the draft?
I felt worse after the coaching hiring, but the draft was good. I feel pretty confident about the draft picks, but the coaching hiring, that wasn't a good pick.
Okay, so what don't you like about Nick Sirianni? Can I ask you that?
There's players on his roster that's older than him. It's hard to listen to somebody younger than you.
Better. Way
Why
better.
do you feel better?
Because I really wanted us to get Devontae Smith, and we got him.
Because I like Devontae. We need a wide receiver, so we got a nice wide receiver. Take the Deshaun Jackson place. That's about it right there.
I'm a big Crimson Tide fan, so they got 2 Alabama players, and actually 3. And this is our year. And I got on my Lucky Eagle shirt, City of Champions.
Look at that.
I'm the mailman, 14 years on this route, and I've been a Birds fan all my life.
All right, so you're saying right now the mailman is saying that the Eagles will deliver.
I guarantee.
So I guess because he took some Alabama players, you love him even more. But how do you feel about Howie Roseman since the draft?
I'm not ready to build a statue for Howie Roseman because he made a lot of bonehead mistakes in the past, but I'm going to give him credit for this one. He did his homework. He made a deal with the devil with Dallas, but that's okay. And he leapfrogged the Giants once again. Go Birds!
Now, I asked you about the Eagles. You feel better about them? Do you feel any better about Howie as the Eagles general manager? Never ceases to amaze me how great the people of Philadelphia, especially the one lady. So what do you think about Howie Roseman? I love it. Like, I don't know if there's more. I don't know if there's a better adjective with less letters. Describe your feelings. I'm with you there, lady. Thank you. So also thank you to the great people of FanUp for bringing us Farzy in the Field this week. And thanks to all the people that were kind enough to stop on the streets with me and talk a little Eagles football. Beautiful day. Just a gorgeous day yesterday. Just lovely. Just absolutely lovely. Let's move on now to our morning rush brought to you by Sky Motorcars and SkyMotorcars.com. Phillies Braves tonight. Zach Eflin versus Charlie Morton. Good old Charlie. Charlie Morton tonight, 7:05 start time. Phillies starting that 3-game series with the Braves, and they are a game up in first place in the NL East. Staying in baseball, Albert Pujols DFA'd by the Angels. Aside from just Hall of Fame career, one of the things that really jumped out at me was like, wow, that's already been 10 years? 10 years he hasn't played for the Cardinals. 10 years he has not played for the Cardinals. It's been that long that he's been in Los Angeles playing for the Angels out there. Absolutely. Or Anaheim playing for the Angels out there. Absolutely insane. One of the greatest athletes I've ever seen in my entire life. I remember I think I was in college at the time, maybe a freshman in college. I saw Albert Pujols his rookie year. Was that 20 years ago? No, I was in high school. And his rookie year, he was playing left field for the Cardinals. They played at the Vet. And I remember I went down to the game, and I just happened to sit in front of Albert Pujols' family. I don't know what they were doing in Philly, but they were in Philly. And I went up to Albert Pujols after the game as like a 17-year-old, 16-year-old kid, whatever it was. And I was like, can I get your autograph? And he turned me down, shot me down. Right there at the end of the game, he was talking to his family. I went up there. I thought I was friends with his family at that point, and we had been talking the whole game, nice people. And he was like, "No, man, I can't sign autographs." And I was like, "God, what?" And then, of course, he goes on to be a 3-time MVP, 2-time World Series champion, 667 career home runs, more than Willie Mays. Happy birthday, Willie Mays! Yesterday turned 90. God bless you. Just one of them overall. Forget about just greatest hitters, greatest baseball players. One of the greatest athletes I've ever got to watch the entire career and appreciate the entire career of. Albert Pujols, ended the line for him with the Angels. He'll be going elsewhere. I don't know what the money looks like, how much the Angels pay, or I don't know how it works, but I would love to have Albert Pujols on the Phillies if they could make that work somehow. And it's not because I want him to play first base or anything like that. I would just love that mind to be around Rhys Hoskins, to be around Bryce Harper, to be around Alec Bohm. Would love to have Albert Pujols on the Phillies. Excuse me. Let's get into some NBA conversation. There it is. I knew at some point the allergies were going to get me. I could barely breathe right there. Nets lost to the Mavericks last night, 113-109. Kyrie Irving, 45 points. What's his face? That Luka Doncic fella had 24 points in the game. This is a bad 4 losses in a row now for the Brooklyn Nets. Sixers now 2.5 games in first place. I love to say it because you love to see it, and I do in fact love to see it. Nets, I wouldn't mind them imploding. Like, it would be wild to me if the Bucks ended up passing. They're only a half game behind the Nets right now for second place in the Eastern Conference. James Harden did say that he plans on playing before the playoffs yesterday. That was some news that came out yesterday from Nets camp, other than them losing. So that happened. What else do we have here? Clippers 118, Lakers 94. Anthony Davis saying yesterday that he tweaked his ankle when he came down awkwardly in the game. He stayed in the game, then had back spasms. All things are falling off the wagon right now for the LA Lakers. So they lost to the Clippers yesterday, 118-94. This was just an aside outside the world of sports. Did anybody see this? I'm a world history guy. I love history in general. I like the stories, right? There's a farmer in Belgium. If you haven't seen this story yet, farmer in Belgium was going around his farm and he was mowing, right? And he sees a big stone. And it's in the path of his tractor. So he gets out of his tractor and he moves the stone and then continues plowing. And then some people came walking through apparently it was on a trail. Like, there's a trail on his farm, and people were walking on this trail and saw that the stone was moved. But they knew this stone was not just any stone. Oh, no, sirree. This stone was a marker for the Belgian-French border. So this farmer moved the stone and then ended up giving 7.5 more feet to the Belgian side of the border and took it away from France. So these people, these little rats, notified the authorities. And the authorities contacted the farmer and be like, yeah, sir, you got to move that stone back. What? And so the farmer has to do it. Otherwise, they're going to go to his land and move the stone back. So the stone had an engraving on it that said 1819. I would think that if you see that stone, you're not going to move it. It's got to be some significance. But this guy was like, yeah, to hell with that. I'm moving it anyway. And by the way, also I was surprised it was 1819 because everything in France, like, that's like an American date. Like, America existed then. Everything that's dated in Europe is like, this is from 1249. This is 1249. No, it's something weird like that. I can tell you from experience, I was once drunk, completely hammered, in a little town in Italy called Empoli, which is like a suburb of Florence. And I was really hammered with a bunch of American friends, and this is when I was in college. And there was a beautiful fountain that had all these lions on it. And I remember climbing the fountain, sitting on the lion, taking a photo, because of course I did. And I when I got back home, when I got back to the States, I was like, you know what? That was a fun town. A couple of nice restaurants, great people, beautiful fountain. And I Googled the town of Empoli, and I think it came up on Wikipedia, but whatever it was, the fountain that I climbed was built, and it was sculpted in the year 1100. Yeah. That's probably my ugliest American story right there. I'm a big fat idiot, folks. Don't follow in my footsteps. Big Bets was our morning rush, brought to you by Sky Motorcars at SkyMotorcars.com. Big Bets. I hit for you last night. I told you got to take the Wizards in Toronto, take it on the Raptors. They were at plus 1.5 taking on the Raptors last night. They won. They went to overtime, and the Wizards won, so I hit on that bet. I believe that's 5 in a row for me. Good hustle to me. Here's what you got tonight. Sixers minus 8.5 taking on the Pelicans. Celtics, this is the bet I'm making tonight. Celtics minus 3 at the Chicago Bulls. I hate the Celtics. Can't root for the Celtics, but I think they can make me some money tonight. Minus 3 against the Bulls. Bulls are coming off a nice win last night, so I like the Celtics minus 3. The Mavericks are going up minus 10.5 against the Cavs tonight in Dallas. I kind of like the Mavs covering against the Cavs tonight at minus 10.5. But the bet I'll definitely be making is the Celtics -3 going up against the Chicago Bulls. That game going on in Chicago. Ladies and gentlemen, fun week of shows. Had a blast with you guys as always. We recapped the draft. We talk about the Phillies getting a 4-game sweep of the Brewers. We talked about a lot. We even talked about the Belgian border today. So we covered a lot this week, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for watching. For everyone that watched on YouTube and Twitch and all our social media platforms, make sure you click subscribe on our YouTube page as well as Twitch. Also, and my thanks once again to Adam Kaplan. Make sure you check him out with Inside the Birds podcast with Jeff Mosher, as well as his new Twitch show. Talking all things NFL. So my thanks to all of you for listening and watching, also, and all the people that download the podcast. Of course, Jim Hyden produced the program. This is a Buzz Sports and Entertainment production. My name is Marc Farzetta here from the Steven Singer Studios. And one last time, take care of Mom this Mother's Day. Happy Mother's Day to all you beautiful moms out there, including my lovely mother, Eleanor. Happy Mother's Day, Mom. Love you. Have a great weekend, everybody. Be back with you guys on Monday. Take it easy, everyone. Bye.